Take a look at this. Now compare it to this. The difference is insane. The remake doesn't just upgrade the graphics, it elevates the entire visual experience. But the things it fixes, at the same time it also removes. Why? We don't know for certain, but we do know for a fact that what are the things that it fixes and what are the things that it removes. So, let's begin. For a fact, this was easily one of the most frustrating aspects of the original game. If you played it back in 2013, you already knew almost 80% of the missions boiled down to tailing and following targets. You'd carefully stay out of sight, reach the endpoint, and then watch a cutscene. Mission over. A few of them tried to mix things up, but most felt exactly the same. And just when you thought that it couldn't get worse, the game introduced naval tailing missions. Yes, tailing ships with a jackdaw, then continuing on foot, and that one flag mission, it was absolute nightmare. But the real issue wasn't just the repetition, it was how unforgiving it was. If you get slightly out of line and get detected for a second, then boom, it was instant mission failure for ya. A full restart. It made sense for a stealth-focused game, sure, but this felt overly punishing. Now, this is where the remake actually shines. It dials things back in a smart way. Getting detected no longer means immediate failure. Enemies react, the situation escalates, but you can still push through and complete the mission. It keeps the stealth element intact without forcing you into a rigid one mistake and you're done system. It's a small change on paper, but in practice, it makes a huge difference. And honestly, it's one of the best improvements so far. And for those infamous naval tailing missions, whether they return or not is still up in the air. But yeah, we'll find out soon enough. To make the video a bit more spicy, we've decided to mix the best and the worst things in a way that will give you a taste of both the hype and the reality. Continuing with the removal of hidden blade combat. It was one of the highlights of the original games. Being able to use them in combat as a weapon allowed for cinematic kills and some crazy animations that truly made the characters look like a fucking beast. And when the reveal trailer dropped, we all were like, please Ubisoft, give us this feature once again. Because, well, the newer games don't even consider hidden blades a weapon anymore. Anyway, things were not improved as we expected. The game completely took out the weapon to use as a melee weapon, and lore-wise, it doesn't make any sense to be honest. Because by the time of Black Flag, Altair perfected the blades to be used in combat, and another one being that we fought with the hidden blade in AC Shadows. So why not here? Maybe it would have taken too much time for the devs, so we don't know for certain. But it was a thing that robbed us of, and I'm not happy about it. Coming back to the positives, do you remember diving in AC4 to collect chests and jackdaw upgrades? It was simple, a bit repetitive at times, but still oddly satisfying. Well, it's returning as you know, and this time it's been taken to another level. The good news is that you're no longer restricted to specific dive spots. Yes. Now you can dive almost anywhere in the ocean, which completely changes how exploration feels. It's more open, more natural, and way more exciting because you never really know what you might come across. And based on the sea exploration footage we've seen, this system looks much bigger in scale. There's a strong chance we'll encounter more rewards, more threats, and overall a lot more variety during these dives. What's more interesting is the possibility of these underwater sections connecting to things like smuggler dens, just like some locations did in the original. If they expanded that idea, it could add a really nice layer of depth to exploration. Overall, this is easily one of the best additions so far. It respects what made the original fun, but actually builds on it in a more meaningful way. In short, it's improving the experience without stripping away its identity. Look, this is one of those points where the direction makes sense on paper, but the execution is what really decides it. The parkour in Black Flag Resynced is clearly being pushed towards a more shadow style system. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. The animation looks smoother, movement feels more fluid, and the map design even seems to support the free traversal style. But the trade-off is noticeable. At times, it does feel a bit floaty and weightless. For example, in that shot where he's running and does a back eject, the height is there, maybe even improved, but the sense of impact isn't quite the same. It feels like they've added verticality but slightly reduced the grounded weight that the original had. And that's really the core issue here. It's not about realism, it's about feel. The original had this punchy, deliberate motion that made every jump and landing feel intentional. Here, it is smoother, but sometimes it loses that physical presence. That said, the system isn't without potential. If they refine the animations a bit more and add some choreographed situational moves, especially during transitions or tighter traversal, it could easily elevate the whole experience. And a more cinematic camera would also go a long way in selling the impact of movement, which you mentioned, and honestly that could fix a lot of the perception issues. So yeah, the foundation is solid and the direction is understandable. It just needs a bit more weight and refinement. If you played the original game back in 2013, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're out in the open ocean, steering the Jackdaw, and you finally spot Havana or Kingston on the horizon. You sail to it and boom, loading screen. Back then it was something we accepted. The older hardware simply couldn't handle rendering the massive open ocean in a dense bustling city at once. But man, did it break the immersion. Every single time you wanted to dock at a major hub, you were pulled right out of that pirate fantasy for a few seconds. And this is where Black Flag Resynced absolutely delivers. The remake completely shatters those old barriers thanks to the updated Anvil engine and current gen power. The transitions to major cities are now 100% seamless. Now you can sail right up into the harbor of Nassau, physically drop the anchor and leap directly from the deck of the Jackdaw to the city. No loading screens, no fade to black, you can literally transition from intense naval combat straight into fluid urban parkour without skipping a single beat. It might sound like a standard experience for modern open world games now, especially after we saw seamless map exploration in games like Odyssey, but for Black Flag it's a total game changer. It takes an already incredible setting and makes it feel entirely connected and alive. It respects the sheer skill of the Caribbean and finally gives us the true uninterrupted pirate experience which we all craved. Bouncing back to the hype, let's talk scale. Before the official reveal, there were a lot of rumors floating around that the map for Black Flag Resynced was going to be bigger. We expected a slight upscale, maybe a few extra islands, but honestly we had no idea it was going to be this extent. We finally got a look at the game's map, and it is undeniably massive. It's not just a one-on-one upscale of the 2013 Caribbean that we all remember, but it actively expands the boundaries, adding entirely new sailable areas and brand new land locations that simply weren't accessible in the original game. What's even better is that it looks like they also seamlessly blended the old DLC locations directly into the main open world map. Now it's all just one massive interconnected map. And exploring this fully realized version of the West Indies is going to be an absolute time sink in the best way possible, proving that this isn't just a visual remaster but a true expansion of the world we love. Let's shift gears and talk about the narrative, because this right here is pure fan service. If there was ever one tiny critique of the original game's masterpiece of a story, it was that some of the most legendary historical pirates felt like they came and went just a little too quickly. You'd meet them, do a few missions, and suddenly their part of the story was over. Well, Resynced is actually taking the time to expand the narrative by adding entirely new story arcs, and specifically we're getting extended quest lines for Steed Bonnet and Blackbeard. Getting more screen time and dedicated missions alongside these absolute legends is a massive win. It gives the writers a real chance to flesh out Edward's relationships with them even further. Because in the original, Steed Bonnet died off screen and we have very little screen time with him. By deepening their bonds, their eventual fates are going to hit that much harder emotionally. This is exactly what a remake should do, proving that they aren't just copy-pasting the old script, but actually refining and elevating the story we already love. Now, I want to be fair here because I know how much we all love the music, but I've got to be a bit critical of the new direction for the sea shanties. In the original game, the shanties were the soul of the experience. They felt raw, gritty, and authentic. Like you were actually listening to a bunch of tired, salty pirates belting out tunes over the sound of crashing waves and wood. In Resynced, the shanties are back but the vibe has shifted. Listening to the new transitions, they feel a bit too clean. It sounds less like a crew of rough sailors and more like a professional choir recorded in a high-end soundproof studio. Everything is perfectly on pitch and polished, which actually works against the atmosphere. It loses that dirty, ambient, lived-in feel that made the 2013 version so immersive. Don't get me wrong, they sound musically great, but they lack that authentic pirate edge. It's a bit of a too much polished situation, where the high production value actually takes away from the grounded reality of life on the Jackdaw. And that's it for today's video. We hope you guys loved it, and if you really did, then make sure to let us know in the comment section below. Subscribe for more content like this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.